Hello and salam alaikum. This is FEMYSO at election results night here in the European Parliament in Brussels. This is our third and last panel of the day, and our topic is about the results and what the expectations are for the future. So besides me on my right, so at my right I have with me Munir. So my name is Hania. I forgot to mention, this is quite important. With me, so my amazing guests, so I have Munir Akari. You are a data and political analyst and who worked with the EU and UN agencies. So thank you for being with us. And Hande, you are head of campaigns at FEMYSO, and you are studying Sciences Po in Paris and LSE in London, I guess, and studying European affairs. So thank you for being on our third and last discussion of the day. My first question is, why is it so important? Why was it so important to engage in these elections, like from the FEMYSO perspective?
So FEMYSO is a form of European Muslim youth and student organizations. We have members of 31. We have 31 members, which are Muslim youth and students all over Europe. With this elections campaign, we wanted to have Muslim youth, but youth in general also, get educated on the elections, be able to make an informed decision of who to vote for, and we also wanted to actually have them vote. So we wanted to have them first educated, and we also wanted to make them have them make an informed vote. But with this campaign, we didn't want to restrict, let's say, youth activism to only the elections. We really want them to move, to engage with their parliamentary democratic representatives, with the public debate, political discussions outside of the elections.
Also, you, Munir, how do you feel that it's so important for FEMYSO, for example, but also youth organizations to engage into these elections through this campaign?
Thanks. There's an opportunity here with this election cycle to renew our pledge for the vision of Europe. When our foremothers and fathers who came together after decades of war to bring different people, an idea to bring different people to come and live together in a project of peace and security and economic cooperation, positioned Europe today as one of the most powerful economic and political powerhouses in the world. But we have a new chapter ahead of us today, and we are writing that chapter. And we have a choice here. What kind of chapter do we want to write for this, for tomorrow's future of Europe? And for that reason, it's extremely important for young people, especially young people who will live through this future, to understand what kind of Europe they are shaping, and the importance of contributing, not just during the election cycle, but even after the elections, to ensure that we understand our position in power, to understand that we can make our voices heard, our opinions heard, and we can hold people in office accountable to what is being said, and to the visions that our founders put together decades ago.
So, Hande, what can you expect for the next 5 years for FEMYSO, for example, with the European institutions? How closely do you think you are getting, or how can you make sure that you are going to work closely with them?
So this is much of it actually is really up to the European institutions to see what direction the EU is actually going to take, because first of all, we are a young organization, we're a youth organization, and we are a Muslim youth organization. It's a fact that Muslims are coming more and more under the attack, are targeted more and more by both extreme left but also extreme right parties. Not only Muslims, many of the minorities in Europe are targeted by extremist parties. So the results, of course, are the results will prove themselves in the coming 5 years. Of course, like what policies will be taken, what decisions will be taken. If the direction will continue in the way it is. Ideally, what I would like to see from a youth perspective, but also from a Muslim youth perspective, is that youth are getting more and more support in order to have a more influence in the policy-making decisions that we have be more represented at the EU institutions. And also with regards to minorities, there has to be clear and very much stronger policies taken to target the increasing hate crimes that is threatening our democracies in Europe.
Yeah, and we've seen as the results began to come true that the turnout for these European elections are unmatched from any previous elections that we've had, and the parliament that's being shaped tonight also showed a significant increase in young people being elected, but also in issues like climate justice, especially with the Greens winning significant number of seats, and it shows that the voice of young people is resonating and impacting the legislator, and impacting these institutions of legislation on issues such as climate justice and global warming, and linking that to a lot of the challenges that it's impacting, particularly on the southern European region.
Okay, so have you checked a bit the results? Are they like what you expected when you engaged into this campaign, or is it shocking for you, or maybe how do you feel about
shocking. It's not too shocking. I'm indeed very happy with from a personal perspective. I'm happy with the seats that the Greens have won, but also it's the seats that are won by the far right are of course not very let's say, doesn't really make me happy from many perspectives. First of all, they are very clearly Eurosceptic. They're very clearly anti-European, and we are very clearly pro-European. We are very clearly, our motto is working for a diverse, cohesive and vibrant Europe. And when you see that many more seats are taken up by Eurosceptic, anti-European parties, this really is a threat to our European democracies, to the fundamental values on which this European project has been built, and these are exactly the values that we are trying to uphold. And when you take it a step further, when you look at how they're actually specifically targeting minorities, when they're specifically using Islam and Muslims in their political party campaigns, this is very concerning. The normalization of Islamophobia is a major threat to our democracies, to our cohesive societies in Europe. It's a major threat to the European project, which stands for united and diversity.
And this creates at the same time, this is an amazing opportunity for young people to continue to be engaged even after these elections have been the results have been accounted, and it's an opportunity for us to raise our voice, to ensure that our opinion continues to be echoed across these institutions, and to hold the MEPs, to hold the bureaucrats accountable for not just the outcome of policies that they draw in the decision tables, but also on their rhetoric, and how their rhetoric and their speech can create extremely negative and dividing circumstances on the ground. We know the European Union's Fundamental Rights Agency came out with some facts recently, and they show that 1 in every 4, I think specifically 24% of ethnic minorities in Europe face discrimination up to 10 times a year, and this is only based on 10% of people reporting those discriminations. So there's a stark and the discriminations that happened here occurred mainly in seeking jobs within the workplace itself, in education institutions, in housing, and in seeking healthcare. All of these things are absolutely fundamental to people living their lives, and if ethnic minorities feel that they're being left out of these fundamentals, how can we expect them to become active participants in democracy and identify as European citizens if that otherization continues to be hammered down?
So another question for you. You said that it was an opportunity for youth organization with minority backgrounds to continue to engage. How?
Right.
What's the perspective?
Right. Everyone should know that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And if you have a device and if you have access to the internet, you have an opportunity to contribute, to raise your voice, to speak up, and that's one of the simplest ways to do it on an individual level. Secondly, it's really important for us to recognize our rights, to learn about our rights, to educate those around us about their rights in society. Because when we don't know our rights, when we don't know what we are entitled to, then we begin to pull ourselves out of the picture, especially in light of the rhetoric, of demonizing rhetoric. And what that does is it creates self-isolation in these communities, which is exactly what we don't want, especially in amongst minorities.
And you, Hande, from the FEMYSO perspective, how are you going to continue to engage with the EU institutions?
With this elections campaign, we've seen that when you give talent is universal, but opportunities are not. When you give the opportunities to young people, when you bring them to the European Parliament, when you give them the microphone, when you ask for their opinions, then they really show a lot of engagement. Our aim is to continue these processes to get youth more involved after the elections as well, to make sure that they have the tools, they have the education, they have the knowledge, they have the skills to actively engage with their MEPs mainly, but also get them involved in consultation as well with the representation work that we are doing. Something crucial that I want to go back is with regards to our continued work as well. I think it's tied, is that what we really need to prevent is tokenization, is tokenizing young people for the fact that they are young, and involving minority people for the fact that they're minorities. So basically ticking the box. That is something that absolutely must not happen. What we want is to see us as citizens, but also recognize that there are structural problems that we mainly identify and live with, and that we can really concretely advise EU institutions on how to tackle these things. This is the ideal version of how we see our continued work after the elections. And thankfully, during the elections campaign that we have seen a lot of support from both MEPs, various ones, and the EU institutions. Now it's up to them to show to us that they actually care and that they will continue their commitment that they have shown during this elections campaign.
Well, I think it's maybe you want to add something at least at the end, and then we'll wrap up, because I think that's it has been like a productive discussion.
Yeah, I'll just end by saying that today we have a choice in Europe. We can choose to bring back what our founders imagined for Europe. A Europe that is diverse, a Europe where different people can come together and live together in peace, or we can choose to frame the other as dangerous, as a danger to society, and the choice is ours.
Well, thank you very much. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and follow on our website. Thank you for listening, and Assalamu alaikum.